Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here is Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. Let me say Hotep Havaragani to my Africana Studies people. And let me say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but certainly never good night, and never ever goodbye, because I've always found goodbyes traumatizing. My name is Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and we're being hosted by our sister church, the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, located at 8916 South Main Street, where the pastor is my good friend, the Reverend Dr. Della F. Hollines. And we want to send our condolences to Evangelist Evelyn Brown in the loss of her mother, Miss Christine Watson, this week, and she departed on Tuesday. So keep her lifted up in your prayers. This is a social justice offering, this presentation that you're viewing, and it's social justice because we can't serve God in a vacuum, and we cannot serve God in a bubble. As Dr. King said a long time ago, some of us have become anesthetized behind the stained glass windows. But you're going to have to get out and worship with God's people, and whatever you're going to do, you're going to have to do it among God's people. And while I'm on that, let me say in passing that it was a tragedy and a crime that Mr. Jordan Neely was put in a chokehold on board that subway train, and not only was he killed by Daniel Penny, but then the police let Daniel Penny walk away because they couldn't see whether it was a homicide, whether that was a crime. Whereas if Mr. Penny had been black, he would have been arrested immediately. And so we have to continue to observe the injustices that are present all over this country, and indeed and have been in existence since the doctrine of white supremacy was imposed upon the world. Remember, people have been shot for trying to back out of the wrong driveway, knocking on the wrong door, and all of that type of nonsense. And this is a further evidence, a sign of the deterioration of even the milk of human kindness, when people on board a subway train can watch a man murder another man, and they don't intervene, they don't sound the alarm. This is a very bad place that we are in, and it looks like the white supremacists are winning. However, we refuse to go backwards, and so we must press forward and resist this white supremacy wherever we find it. All right, having said that, I move on to the lesson, to the letter of a Mr. James G. Thompson. It's a black man way back in 1940s. He sent it to the Pittsburgh Courier. The questions he raised, I raised with you today. He was a black man, naturally, and these are his questions. Because he knew he was going to be drafted to serve in World War II. He knew he was going to be in a segregated army or military, because that was the military reflected, in other words, the society out of which the military was taken. These are his questions. Should I sacrifice my life to live half American? Will things be better for the next generation, for the peace to follow? Would it be demanding too much to demand full citizenship right now in exchange for the sacrifice of my life? Is the kind of America I know worth defending? This is, again, he was on the verge, on the eve of being drafted into World War II. And while I'm passing on that, let me also say that our people fought courageously and heroically in World War II. But when I see the old reels, I only see white people. I don't see our people. And so, again, the journalism, the news media, is a reflection of the larger society. If it's a camera in the hand of a white person, then they're going to, who are they going to gravitate toward? They're going to gravitate toward somebody that looks like them. And so that is why we have to have our own news media out there reporting as well, so that that picture can be more balanced. But let me not digress. Still quoting from that letter, Mr. James Thompson's letter, written way back in the 40s. Let me see. Those who perpetuate these ugly prejudices here are seeking to destroy our democratic form of government. Just as surely as the Axis forces, America could become unified as never before and truly become the home of democracy. Let me quote another of his at this letter. I might say that there is no doubt that this country is worth defending. Remember, this man was writing long before Isidore Howard Woods had his eyes gouged out, and coming back from World War II. He says, this country is worth defending. Things will be different for the next generation. True democracy, it was designed to be, let me go back. Okay, and America will become the true democracy it was designed to be. That's what I meant to say. All right. In conclusion, let me say, though these questions often permeate my mind, I love America. It's a black man now, and am willing to die for the America I know will someday become a reality. And that was the conclusion of his letter to the Pittsburgh Courier, written way back there on the verge, on the eve of America's entry into World War II. And looking at today's news and events and the reports, I just wonder if he could come back now, would he still feel as he wrote then in that letter to the Pittsburgh Courier? It begs the question that Langston Hughes posed in that poem that he wrote. America has never been America to me, but yet I make a vow that America will be. So we haven't got to that city on the hill. We have become that democracy, and it looks like we're going backwards. Like I said at the outset, with the death of Mr. Name got away from me. Jordan Neely on the subway there. I think it was Monday of this week. That gives you pause to wonder if the prophetic words of Dr. King, when he said we could be integrating our people into a burning house, may be coming true in our lifetime. All right. This week, the Proud Boys were convicted of sedition. Now, the definition of sedition is conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against the authority of a state or monarch, rebellion against established order. And you know, we black people have been in rebellion and sedition a long time because we've always had to protest. We've always had to push back against this very nation that Mr. James Thompson wrote that heartfelt letter to the Pittsburgh Courier, wondering if it was worth his blood and if America would ever get, if the America of his day was worth defending. God Almighty. Somebody can write those questions. That's like you spoke those questions and those ideas today. Back to the trial of the Proud Boys, Mr. Enrique Tarrio and Mr. Ethan Nordine and Joseph Biggs and Zachary Rio, I think is his name, were all four of these were convicted of sedition, which is a which is the idea of sedition. Excuse me, of conspiracy. Let me see. Can I state the counts that were against them? Conspiring. Convicted of interfering with the duties of members of Congress. That's where they tried to stop the vote, and if the people had not had the presence of mind to take those boxes, those storage boxes, with them when they fled. I'm talking about the Congress people that were beginning their count. Let's see. They were convicted of a tacit agreement to disrupt certification. All right, says presiding Judge Timothy J. Kelly of the prosecution allowed the prosecution to introduce damning evidence of violent behavior and aggressive language of members of the Proud Boys who had only limited connection to the five defendants, but through Mr. Tarrio, and Mr. Tarrio through another criminal, Roger Stone, who had also been pardoned previously by the said Donald Trump, whom the Proud Boys say was their leader and the motivation for their actions on January 6th. Remember, all of these convictions stem from the January 6th as it's called in court, insurrection, but when in court it was sedition. Now the difference between sedition and insurrection it depends on the eye of the beholder, and I won't go into the weeds on that because I want to expand on these convictions. These were American, so-called, and because they didn't like the fact that Joseph Robinette Biden won the election, they sought to interfere and overthrow the government, the counting of the vote, the ratifying of the election by the Electoral College. And they, if you listen to the testimony of the January 6th subcommittee, which was headed by Benny Thompson, they had some very, very detailed reasons and ideas and plans how they were going to disrupt that count. And they were very happy when they got the representatives to flee out of the House of Representatives chambers in fear and hide from them. And don't ever forget that they had a gallows up outside and said, we're going to hang Mike Pence, we're going to hang Nancy Pelosi. One has to wonder, when you look at this nation and this double standard of justice. Yes, it's a double standard because the Black Lives Matter people weren't allowed to get within 2 blocks of that Capitol. The troops stood 4 deep to make sure that no Black Lives Matter people got for that Capitol. But because the people on January 6th, with their complexion, a lot of the people in the armed service, in the law enforcement, especially the Capitol Police and the Maryland Police and the Washington, D.C. Police, all of those jurisdictions were laid back. These are our people. They look like me. So they allowed them to scale the walls of the Capitol, break the glass of the Capitol, run down and disrupt the lobby, and disrupt down the lobby halls of the Capitol, and disrupt the ongoing process of the people's business. That's why they were convicted of interfering, interfering with the duties of members of Congress. That's very important. That says that there was a tacit agreement to disrupt the certification. All right. And they thought they were going to get away with it, and they did get away with it. And while we're talking about Mr. Enrique Tarrio, and Mr. Nordine, and Mr. Biggs, and Mr. Rio, and the Proud Boys, let us not forget that Jenny Thomas, the wife of a sitting justice of the Supreme Court, supported and paid for the transportation of a lot of people that were there that day, even though she swears she had left before Trump gave his speech. But still in all, her fingerprints are all over this sedition. And so I feel that she should have been brought up on charges too. But because he is a sitting justice on the Supreme Court, and while we're on that, Clarence Thomas, remember, just this week, it was revealed by ProPublica that his grandnephew, who he was raising as his son, his tuition at these private schools was being paid for by this same Mr. Alan Crow. And but Clarence Thomas never disclosed all of that. You see, he didn't want affirmative action for the black folks, but he was getting affirmative action, you know. And this man had been, Mr. Crow, who was being revealed this week, that he has been supporting Clarence Thomas' family and paid for Clarence Thomas' mother's house, and he bought the property where Clarence's mother lives, and she doesn't have to pay any rent or lease or anything, and he's not obliged to pay the lease on any property. And so he is beholden. He is a compromised justice. There's an old biblical scripture that says a gift clouds judgment, words to that effect. And this is what is becoming apparent that Mr. Clarence Thomas, Justice Clarence Thomas, has done. He's been bought and paid for by this billionaire, Mr. Alan Crow. And that is one of the reasons why they are attempting to increase the numbers of the judges that are on the Supreme Court, because these fellows are bought and paid for. Chief Justice Roberts says he believes in the institution, but his institution, it has been seriously compromised. And we find out that the justices of the Supreme Court have no ethics. In other words, they have no rules of ethics. They can do what they want because they ain't got no ethics. They do not have what lower court judges have, which every lower court judge down to the Superior Court judge has to recuse himself if a case comes before him that he has had some dealings with the parties on either side, doesn't matter. That judge is obligated to make it known and to recuse himself from that case, because there's a conflict of interest. And not only Clarence Thomas, but Neil Gorsuch sold 40 acres of land to somebody who has had 11 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court with him sitting on it. And so you can see the corruption, you can see the rot, and you can see the infection and the process of the infection among the so-called nine honorable justices of the United States Supreme Court. So they have all of these things against them that are just coming to light. And why is it coming to light? Because they did not reveal it in their taxes. They should have revealed it in their income taxes that they file every year, but they don't. And that's what Clarence Thomas is being racked up about, because it's coming about that for 20 years he's been riding around going on lavish vacations, private cruises on this man's private yacht, private plane, and traveling all over the world. And you tell me he's not compromised. If you believe that, I got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. And so no wonder justice is like it is in America. Why so many of our so-called jurists that we call honorable are doing very dishonorable actions. But let me not digress. Now, there was something else I wanted to hit on before I closed out. Oh yes, the character of the Proud Boys was characterized by machismo, homophobia, and misogyny, promoting outright Nazism. You hear me? And they were acting as Donald Trump's army, which was the central heart of the trial. They were acting as Donald Trump's army. They organized and fought to keep their preferred leader in power, no matter what law or court said about it. All right. Remember Trump's tweet in 2020 calling for a wild protest to be held in Washington on January 6th. And that was a clarion call to the Proud Boys to get ready and to be there. And let me see. That was all I had on the Proud Boys, but just look at it. You got vigilante justice. You got white nationalists trying to overthrow the government. And as some public officials said some time ago, that the number one danger in the United States is not from international terrorists, but it's from domestic terrorists right here at home. And the Proud Boys are in the same family with the KKK. And while the KKK in many ways has been neutralized under that name, look at what their branches are doing. You got the Oath Keepers, you got the Proud Boys, you got QAnon, you got the 1%ers. You have all of these offspring who are even more lethal in their approach to social issues, social action than the KKK ever was. And they're more educated. They're far more subtle, and they're far more ingrained. We thought when we found out the sheriff and the district attorney and the constable and all of these folk were members of the KKK, that we had isolated and identified the extent of that poison. But look at these boys. These fellows are actual law enforcement. The response of the law enforcement was retarded because so many of them were sympathizers with the actions of the people who were trying to overthrow the government. And remember, we fought a civil war because people wanted to overthrow the government by violent means. It was the treason that they fired on Fort Sumter in Charleston, and they haven't changed their tactics, and so we fought a bitter war, which we call a civil war. War is never civil, I might add, but we fought a bitter war to end slavery. And then, because we did not keep our foot on the necks of the defeated foe, we allowed them to rise up and wreak their vengeance upon the black population. It's only by the grace of God that we black folks are still here, because we sure didn't have no friends among the Confederacy. And those 11 states that formed the Confederacy, along with the other 4 states, what they call the border states, that one, Maryland, couldn't go because of the federal government guns were bristling down their throats. Maryland, Missouri, Kentucky, and Delaware. Don't forget Delaware. And all of these were in opposition to the government, even though those 4 states did not go out. Abraham Lincoln even said, I must have Kentucky. He said, I want the Lord on my side, but I got to have Kentucky, because if Kentucky had went with the 11 states, then the battle would have been much more difficult for the North to win, because that population in Kentucky, coupled with the population of the Confederate States, would have been too much for the Northern Alliance, the government, to overcome. All right, I'm looking at 428, and I hope I'm right. Hope I'm on time here. But basically, you can see the poison of racism and its manifestation. Remember, racism is most dangerous when it's invisible. And this aggression, this uprising, these uprisings, social uprising that we see in our country, we have to be aware of them. I had meant to say that I did speak on Roger Stone, but I returned to him as I close. Roger Stone was also involved in the 2000 election there in Florida, when he was one of the ones that voted, that was assaulting those people that were trying to count the votes, just like they assaulted those people that were trying to count the votes in Washington. They had done a dry run in Florida when they were able successfully to stop the vote count in Florida. At that time, the Secretary of State last name was Harris, and they were successful in stopping that count, and that is why George W. Bush became president, because the Supreme Court of the United States, in cahoots with Roger Stone and all of those disruptors there, were successful in stopping that vote. That was what they were planning to do. That's what they were trying to do on January 2nd, and they got caught. But don't forget, not only were the people outside, but you had at least 139 people, sympathizers, inside in the Congress that had already voted that morning to not block that count. And so while they want to duck their heads now, they were hoping that the fear of the people coming in from outside, coupled with their opposition to the count inside, would be enough to make that count stop. That's what while Donald Trump was sitting in the lobby there looking at the television screen. He thought he was going to win. As I close, Writers Guild of America is still on strike because they have been cheated, defrauded out of their just due because of the they don't get the residuals that they used to get, and that's why they're out on strike. And I say unto you, my brothers and my sisters, if you're working for somebody and they don't want to pay you, take my advice and don't work for them. All right, Doc, we out of here. Thank you so much. I love you.